More Jane Carroll now on 1360 KUIK, the voice of Washington County.
Welcome back, everybody. Well, it's the time of the week we get to talk to one of those very intelligent, smart, brilliant analysts and researchers at the Cascade Policy Institute. Kathryn Hickok is with us. It's been a while since she's been with us, but she's going to talk to us about a subject where she is just a renowned expert on education, particularly education options that Cascade Policy is often studied and endorsed. And so, but there's some misperceptions about the impact of people taking their kids out of public schools and putting them in alternative educations, private or charter schools or whatever. And Kathryn's going to address some of those myths so that we can become more enlightened and hopefully more supportive. Hi, Kathryn.
Hi, Jane.
How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, my pleasure. This is a very interesting topic. I learned a lot in your PowerPoint presentation. Tell us all about it.
Well, Jane, EdChoice, which is a nonprofit organization that promotes educational choice for all families, just put out a new report that they've done. It's a case study on urban renewal relative to private and charter schools. And I found this to be really interesting because it's a common argument against school choice meaning parents being empowered to take some of the money that would be normally spent on their children in a public school and take some of that money to help them pay for private or parochial schools, homeschooling, or other options. Now, one argument against this is that if parents take their children out of public schools, there may be fewer resources available for the school, perhaps fewer engaged parents in the local public school, and that it would be bad for the neighborhood, bad for the public school, bad for the community. There are a lot of ways to address that misperception, really, about school choice, but what this report studied was the positive economic benefits in one community in Santa Ana, California. They have a charter school there called the Orange County School of the Arts. It's been open since 1987. It's been a public charter school since early 2000. This is one of the most economically depressed neighborhoods in the county. And what this report studied was the economic benefits of having that charter school in the neighborhood. And what they found was that the charter school was a magnet for families to stay in the community. This was an area where the public schools, frankly, were quite poor. There wasn't a whole lot of incentive for parents to have their kids in those schools. It's a very economically depressed neighborhood. But the charter school, in a way, serves as an anchor for those families and the community. And today, this report says, they have 2,000 people commuting right into that neighborhood, either people who live right in the area or people who live near the area, but within driving distance to take their kids there for school. You've got the parents coming in, you have the employees coming in, you have kids doing after-school activities, and it is a driver for some economic renewal in that community that wouldn't be there otherwise. I think this is a really neat story because it helps to illustrate how private schools and charter schools and other alternative education environments, they're all part of the community too. So when we talk about communities, low-income communities, depressed urban environments, and what could actually help them, school choice could help them in that when you have more educational options from private sources or public charter sources, it's an incentive for parents to stay. And those engaged parents, people usually say, well, we don't want those parents to leave the public school because then their influence will be gone. Well, if you give them something in their community that's really helping their kids get a good education, they're going to stick around. They're not necessarily going to flee to the suburbs. It can help everyone when you have strong schools in the community, and it's not just traditional, conventional public schools that can be anchors for a community. It can be private schools. It can be neighborhood parochial schools. It can be magnet schools, charter schools that could be arts or science-focused. There are all kinds of ways to renew a community, and school choice can be part of that.
Yeah, I think this is a tremendous study because so much of the other revelations that you've studied and others have pointed out, how many good people, concerned parents and families do move into communities with better education options for their children. And that's been true for years. Portland has lost families as they have children and moved to other schools. Portland used to have stellar public schools. That there's still a few, but they're not equal. And people are looking for options, and they're going elsewhere to get them. And with the options that are being made available, and many of the options have waiting lists for people to get into those schools, people are really realizing that public schools are not the only answer, and it doesn't hurt education, but helps education overall when we have quality education available in the community.
Right, and it can be a helpful argument, too, to be sympathetic to the reality that people are tied to their communities, and that is a good thing. And there are a lot of people, and even here in Portland, there are people who have grown up in certain neighborhoods in Portland that they are very attached to, and that is a good thing. In the African American community, there are neighborhoods they are very attached to, and schools they are very attached to, and they really care about those areas. People really shouldn't have to move out of their neighborhood in order to get a good education, and that was really the premise of the public school system in the first place. So if we can have alternatives in those neighborhoods so that people don't need to choose between their neighborhoods and their communities and a future for their kids, that's a great thing. Some of these charter schools operate actually in a regular public school building. Some public school buildings have space they're not using because of changes in demographics in the neighborhood. You could have a gigantic high school, and there just aren't that many kids in their area anymore, but a charter school can operate in one wing of that building. And we've seen that here in Oregon, where we have different educational outcomes depending on whether it's the traditional high school or the charter school that's operating literally on the same property. It can be a beautiful thing to give parents choice, and I think that the more options that parents have in their own areas, then that really does strengthen the community. And also, it's I've heard this so many times from people in the school choice movement, especially from lower income communities and minority communities, and they say we want our kids to grow up with a good education, but we don't want them to leave either, because so often kids leave in order to get a better education, a better future. They go away and make money. They don't come back, and that can be really hard for these neighborhoods. It's great for the kids in a neighborhood to see people who are slightly older than they are growing up and succeeding and being leaders in their own communities. And so if we can do that through school choice by empowering both the parents to choose a school and empowering the school leaders to be able to fund these startup schools, I mean, that takes money. So it's really, it's giving people a chance to change their own community from the inside. And that's really, I think, what the opponents of school choice fear the most, is that people will leave, there'll be less resources, and the kids won't come back. And I think there is that sensitivity that we need to have to communities, and school choice is not antithetical to that point of view. In fact, by nature, it is it's conducive to building community, because people in the area who want other choices, they may want to start a school right in their own neighborhood, and I think we should really encourage that.
Yeah, and they want good schools with their kids. I also believe that charter schools, who technically are public schools because they don't get the same level of funding as a public school student per student, but they have to be chartered by the government within a legitimate organization. And so these are parents making choices and options. And I firmly believe that when you have competition or better options for kids, it sort of inspires educators in other schools to be better as well, because most teachers and educators want the best for the kids. Right,
they do, and I think that's really important. It's important to help them do that.
Absolutely. Okay, Kathryn, where can people get more information about this? See your PowerPoint presentation, because it really is a good one. I really thought it was terrific.
CascadePolicy.org.
Thank you so much. Good to talk to you, Kathryn.
Thank you, Jane.
We'll be back after these messages.